please welcome my very special guest, Thomas Wilkins. Let's talk about the power of music, because I think that that's essential. And I want to guide it a little bit towards people who are engaged in serious studies of music and are thinking about what they want to do with their life.
I would like to believe that at the very base of what should motivate us as musicians is an understanding that this music is greater than we are. You know, yesterday I'm sitting in front of that fifth movement, but the end of the fifth movement with the score open at my desk, and my score sits up like this so I don't hurt my neck. So I'm walking, just looking through the pages, and I get near the end, just after what I call before what I call the epilogue of the last movement, and I just start to cry. And the reason that I start to cry is because I cannot believe that I get to be a part of this world. And it is that understanding that, as I said to my own musicians, that this music was here long before us and will be here long after we're gone. And we will never measure up. But it's in the trying to measure up that makes us artists. Every great artist that you listen to and talk to, you know, I'm in a dressing room with a soloist next to me, and it could be a soloist that has played a piece a million times and they're still going through passages, you know, just to make sure that it's what they think it ought to be, even at that stage in their career and their life. It's because they understand that this will always be greater. You know, Beethoven said that, I don't know where this comes from, it just comes. You know, and James Taylor's version of that was, I don't think I write the songs, I think I'm just the first guy that gets to hear them. Your competition is not the person sitting next to you or the person in the warm-up room before the audition. You have no control over what abilities God gave that person. Your biggest competition is your ignorance. And if you vow every morning that you're going to get up and you're going to do battle with your biggest competition, which is your ignorance, then every day you walk away smarter. And why would you want to do that? Because this music is greater than we are. It takes us further away from the apes and closer to God.
There's a kind of a structure of leadership. So,
right.
So it's like many organizations that we know. There's a president, but there are many vice presidents, and there are many people who have to have the freedom to explore use all of their talents in order to get the maximum results. And how one manages that is part of the job of the conductor.
I guess it was Claudio Abbado, maybe, or Barenboim, who said that, you know, people think that conducting is about power. You know, they often say, oh, I wish I had the power of a conductor. And it really is not about power. It is about control. It's about learning when to exercise control and when to release it. I mean, those of you who have been to our concerts, you probably know that or may have noticed that there are many times when my arms aren't even moving. It's because I want players to either not look at me and spend more time listening to each other, which means that they have to figure out, then if he's not waving his arms, who is it that I should be looking at? Sometimes if I give a cue to a player and they are looking at Susanna, the concertmaster, I'm more pleased than if they're looking at me, because my job is to say it's Caribbean, not Caribbean. And we operate as conductors sort of three different time dimensions. Of course, you know that. One is to telegraph a gesture so that the word or the note comes out the way we want it. Is it hammered that way, or does it come out that way? So my physical gestures mean something, and the players know what those gestures mean. But also, once that happens, once the sound happens, then we have to analyze what it is that we're hearing to see if we got the response that we thought we were asking for. And if that material comes back again, we know that now in the future, we have to give some different information. So that's a lot of stuff to be doing while you're sort of busy beating time. So the less that you can be less beating and more about shapes and about what is the character of this sound, and what is the nature of this sound after the attack, then the better off everyone else is. The other thing about letting go, and this is something that takes a little maturity sometimes in leaders, is to know when to let go and when to trust, because trust is a big thing. The other thing that happens is that it empowers people in the orchestra to step up to become artists. You know, we all come with, in many cases, the same amount of background and expertise, and we also all come with a sense of aesthetic. It's my job is simply to unify the concept. But if I don't allow players in the orchestra to become artists, then they just sit there stifled like robots. So it's part psychology, it's part teacher, it's part parent. You know, I'm not their boss, I am their leader. And people don't follow leaders because they're great people. People follow leaders because leaders invite them into something that they want to be a part of. And my biggest responsibility is to invite them with my words and with my abilities and with my attitude about this music, invite them to this world. Don't you want to be a part of this? So when I ask for something, they know I'm not asking for it for me. I'm asking for it because I think it will do something to the listener, because that's what the composer wanted.
Do you think when you're working on Mahler that this has been made easier for us as musicians to grasp it because he understood the orchestra so well?
Composers always give us information in a score that tells us basically how it should go. Mozart sometimes uses mezzo forte as an accent. Brahms uses forte sometimes as a sign that says this is where the phrase starts, not necessarily that this is a dynamic. Or a composer will write a forte that says, I don't really want you to play louder, I just don't want this passage to die. Or they write crescendo for that. I mean, there are all kinds of intellectual clues that's already there. But every composer, I hope, understands that once you get past that, you still have to pour your own life experiences and blood into the piece. I did the world premiere of a piece in Detroit, and the composer's sitting in the audience, and I made some changes in the rehearsal on stage, and I looked up at him, he's sitting in a box, and I looked up at him and said, does that work for you? And he goes, and then after, I pulled him aside at the rehearsal and said, so what did you mean by that? He says, I was pregnant with this piece, I gave birth to this piece, and now this is your baby.